Today we're going to show you how to change out your porch light back up here. This is an old 25-year-old porch light. We're going to update it with a new modern one. So we got this at Costco the other day. I was there with my daughter and she saw this and she goes, "Dad, you got to get this light." So what makes this light pretty cool is this is an LED light and it's got bubble glass, so it's kind of modern here. And so the light emulates from all over and it shoots downward as well. And this puts out 350 lumens from a 3000 Kelvin colored light. Okay, now we need to think safety first. So the very first thing we need to do is we got to cut the power off there to that light. There's two ways you can do it. You can either do it from the light switch or you can do it from your breaker box. Exercising the switch over and over until you make sure that that's what's controlling the light. Off and on a few times. So what I'd like to do then is to tape, when I shut it off here, I'll tape over so we know, people know not to touch it. Look at this, man, it is toasty outside today here. 95 degrees with about 52, 53% humidity. Now it says on here that that's normal, but I don't that it's okay. I don't think so. Because when you're normally in your house, it's about 40 to 45% humidity in there with the air conditioner on, so it's usually nice and dry and comfy. Anything above 50% is when it starts to get uncomfortable. Okay, so to that end, that's why I've enlisted the help of my DeWalt job site fan. Now we did a tool review video of this a couple of months ago that we uploaded. I'll put a link to it down in the description for you. This is a nice little fan because when you're stuck on these hot, humid days outside, if you can get this guy aimed towards you close by here like this, see, aimed up at where I'm going to be working right here, it makes working out in this heat quite bearable. And I'll tell you where else this comes handy too, is when you're out in your barbecue grill, like I'm going to be later today cooking hamburgers, is this blows the smoke in the opposite direction so it doesn't get in your eyes. I like it when the lighting manufacturers use simple, easy to deal with recyclable cardboard and stuff inside. That way I can just put it right into the recycle bin and it doesn't go into the landfill. Okay, so this one here was built on April 20th. Okay, so it looks like today the only tools I might end up needing here are my lineman's pliers and my insulated Phillips head screwdriver. Now you saw us do a tool review of this. Of course, you know, I've done practically a tool review on every tool that I have here in my bag here. But these are cool. These are the Milwaukee insulated. So these are plastic right up until the metal tip right there. So that way you're insulated up to 1,000 volts. And of course, even though the power has been cut off to our box, you just never know when you're going to be operating near an energized line. Okay, so if you look here, our outlet bracket, we have to take it off at the back of the box here so we can secure it to the outlet. So we're going to have to undo a screw on this side and a screw on the other side to loosen it and get it out of there. Okay, now this is aggravating here, and I hate it when companies do really unbelievably stupid stuff like here we thought we were going to be using a Phillips head, and upon closer examination, this is not a Phillips head, folks. That's a hex drive. Why in the world would they need to do something like that when a simple, tiny little 1/4-inch long Phillips head screw would suffice? And here in the installation guide here, the manufacturer didn't even give us the courtesy of telling us the size of that head. It just says mounting screw. But you can see here in the bag of parts here, they gave us an Allen wrench, which again is more stupidity here because it costs the company more money to add that in there as a part when all they had to do was give you 2 Phillips head screws and they wouldn't have had to add this part to the bag. And then on top of that, I would have been done already by now. So now we have to deal with this tiny little thing here and go with this mess here. So as an engineer myself, sometimes I sit there in embarrassment for companies and I wonder, you know, what were you thinking of when you made that decision? And if I live to be 100 years old, folks, I don't think I'll ever figure out why it is they don't make these Phillips heads right here. They always make these a flat head, and of course they have a hex head on here so I can just use my driver, but now I gotta go get my driver when I already had my Phillips head. To dismantle the old light off the wall here, we're gonna use the lineman plier. And listen, there's one on either side. Just these little knob screws. They call them thumbnail screws, thumb screws, whatever. These tiny little round egg heads. Then you do the other side and make sure you hold the light because you don't know how it's going to come flying down, whether it's attached well or not. But once you have both of those pulled off, you just pull it out gently and see what's going on there. Now, as I've mentioned to you before in many of our other videos, where just because you shut off power to an outlet or a light doesn't mean that there isn't still power running in there from other wires that could energize things. That's why before you even touch these wires, you get out your Fluke Volt Alert here and you use this Volt Alert, test the wires here to make sure none of them are locked. And that's also why I wear gloves. Now, some people say, well, gloves aren't going to help you. It could still get through, blah, blah, blah. And I've touched a number of live wires with gloves. I mean, they're not perfect. They're not, the Type 0 rated that some of the high-end pro electricians use. This is more of a lifeboat option for you. This is such a useful tool that I use all the time as a great sanity check to determine if my wire is energized or not. Everybody should have one of these in their tool bag. So here you just power it on there, see how it turns on there? And then we're going to test it on a regular outlet first, a known working outlet. That way we know that our volt alert works, right? I always test it before I use it. So now I'm just going to systematically test every single wire in the whole box and make sure. Now the white wires you won't expect to see voltage on unless somebody really screwed something up upline. It's the black wires are usually the huts, so you always want to check them. And it makes sense that, look, there's only one black and one white and one ground wire coming out of this out. You know that just came from the switch and that there's nothing else in here that's involved. So what we do then is, see, now the light is basically hanging by its 3 wires, and you can see they never grounded this. It's always a good idea to use that ground screw on there and ground the bracket too. So this was not put in entirely correct. So now we're just going to twist off all of these wiring nuts. Our friends up north in Canada, they call them morettes. And again, be ready to hold the light, see, because it just drops right down once you pull off that last wiring nut. Okay, so now we're going to take our scraper and try to scrape off some of this old caulk. And by the way, they use the wrong material. You're not supposed to use caulk, you're supposed to use silicone when you're operating outside. And I'm not too worried about this bare area here that's like a different color gray. I think our new light will cover it, but anyway, we're having this house painted in a month or so anyhow. So we're probably going to pull this light back off when they go to paint. Because you want a nice clean surface anyway. When you put your new light on, you're going to come by with new silicone, and you're going to do the side, the top, and the other side, and maybe a teeny bit of the bottom. You want to leave the bottom mostly open so that any water that should ever somehow find its way behind there will have an exit strategy out the bottom. So these wires are safe to handle. They're not energized. I can do whatever I want with them, and I'm wearing my gloves. So to get these kind off, this is like the scissor type. You just twist it like that and get your flathead screwdriver and unscrew that. To get yourself one of these screw gauges. These are nice, and they really should be in everybody's bag. I can tell you that the standard on most outlets is that these post bolts here are usually going to be 832s, which would be right here. We're down, see, down number 8 and 32 threads. See? And so you can see it screws in just perfectly. And that's pretty much the standard there. Now, the manufacturer of the light provided us with 2 screws. So now that we know that standard here and you understand what's going on here, you can see why I normally carry 2 different sets of all sorts of multiple lengths of screws. So here's my 832s, and I know that all of these in here are going to be used for the outlet box, to screw things onto the outlet box. So I have different lengths because you never know what you're going to run into, folks. You never know how badly the builder puts the box into the wall. You never know whether they shifted it over or if it's embedded too far back into the concrete. Now you need either a longer screw to reach, or maybe you need a shorter screw because they did something stupid. And then in this one here, I have mostly my 6/32. So these look almost as thick, but they're a little skinnier. So all of these screws in this little bin here are used for attaching your receptacles or your switches, screwing them onto those little tiny threads that are built onto the actual outlet box. Okay, so the manufacturer also gave us 2 brand new screws, and what I like about these, see, these are Phillips head, right? So we're going to put these in and just double check it and test. Okay, so here's our 8/32, and it goes in real smooth because these are brand new, nice, shiny screws. Here is something that I never want to see you do. So if you look at this right here, this is a drywall screw, and this is meant for one thing and one thing only. It's meant for drilling through drywall and into the stud, to the wood stud. This is a wood screw. This is not a sheet metal type screw. This is not what we call a machine screw. But I can't tell you how many times I've come behind a handyman that I knew was doing work in an outlet before me, and I find them using screws like this. And the reason why this type of screw is bad, you will strip the threads on the outlet box. So the reason why you don't want to do it is because now when a guy like me comes along and I want to correct it, it's pretty hard to correct it because they've already messed up the threads on those things. And a lot of times they've just grounded it and chewed through it because they really forced these screws in here because they didn't know what they were doing. They were too lazy to go and get the proper type of screw. Okay, so now we're going to install the mounting plate first. And the first thing you do is you always run the wires, all three of them, through the mounting plate because they need to come out here. Just to let you know, when you mount the plate, you don't just put it any old way. Eventually, this is going to have to be perfectly level here. So we'll get my spirit level out here and set it up top here. But what we just want to do is find where's the screw holes and where is it going to go. So it looks like I can get one of them right through here. And the other one, where's he at? He's over here. So you want to tighten this down good and tight. And make sure both of these are tightened in nice and good. What I like about this light here is they give us this hook. See this hook that hangs on the back here? So it allows you to hook it while you're doing your work, while you're taking care of business. Okay, now what I usually do is I'll take the ground wire, because the ground wires are usually old, and I'll take a piece of emery paper here. It's like a very small sandpaper here. It's like a little bit of sandpaper. And what I do is I just sand it down a little bit just to shine it up and give me a much better connection from the old oxidized portion of the wire. So you can see here where it's dark. And here I cleaned it up a bit. Okay, now it's always been my policy to start with the safety ground. So I'll take this guy here and wrap it around. Get them both nice and tight together there. And the reason why I do the ground first is, you know, what if something was energized and if you brush the ground up against it, it's likely to cause the short circuit and trip the breaker instead of you getting shocked. It's a long shot, but it's a safe practice, I think. Okay, so he's on there nice and tight. And we're going to bend him back in there and way back out of the way. And now we're going to take the white wire here and connect it up with their white wire here. This has always been a big complaint of mine with the lighting manufacturers. They never give you enough wire. I like to have more like 3/4 of an inch here because you just can't get enough twist. Let's put it on here. Let's try 16. Okay. And by the way, folks, when you're cutting your wire, make sure you choose the right size hole there because all you want to do is cut through the insulation but not the wire, the copper wire inside of it. You don't want to nick the wire. You don't want to break the wire. In the case of stranded wire, you don't want to accidentally cut a couple of strands either out of that stranded wire. And the black goes to the black wire. Okay. Now if there's any excess, you can cut it back. In this case, it looks like we're okay. Now we take our wiring nuts and screw them on. And what I always like to do is squeeze the wires together like that. I want them nice and parallel going into the back of that wiring nut. See, like that? And when you tighten it, you want to make sure that you can't pull it off. It's got to be on there nice and snug. A lot of times people think, okay, I twisted it on, and then they pop right off again. That's where shorts happen. So you want to make sure it's in there nice and tight. Make sure there's no bare wire sticking out the back. The wiring nut has to cover everything, and if it doesn't, or if it's too long, then you need to cut some of it off so that the wiring nut can fit completely over there and cover it all. See that? Nowhere do you see any bare wires sticking out there. That's how you do it, folks. Pretty simple. Okay, now this is really one of the more important steps, but nobody ever gets this right. I would say nearly 100% of all the light fixtures and ceiling fans and everything that I ever undo, folks, people do it wrong. So pay special attention here. Because see the ground wire that comes out of this outlet, you gotta wrap it around that ground screw, because you have to ground this bracket here, and if you don't ground the bracket, then somebody could get shocked. It presents what we call a shocking. So you gotta just make sure you have that thing grounded. But nobody ever gets that right, and it's such a simple step to do. Because if a wire, one of these wires pops off, say this black wire pops off inside and shorts against this bracket, and then somebody touches the outside of this light and it's connected to this bracket, they're gonna get shocked. Duh. It's just so basic, but it's amazing how many people don't understand that basic concept there. So make sure that you do this correct. You are gonna be the smart one. Okay, so I've moved my hook up to here to its final resting place. And I'm just going to take our wires and stick them back in there nice and deep. And now we're going to put the unit in place here, right over its bracket. All right, so now we'll do this side here. Okay, moment of truth. Peel off the tape. Turn the light on. In all her grandeur there. Now we'll come back out in a couple of hours when it gets dark outside here, and we'll see how this light looks then. But right now, I mean, it looks pretty good. So I like how it throws light upwards into the roof here where it'll spread out evenly, and then it lights down below as well, and then it shoots straight out the front here through all of these light bubbles here. So these actually look like little fiber optic tips. Okay, so here you can see it looks pretty good here at night. As you can see here, the light actually looks a little whiter on video than it does when you're seeing it in person. So the light is really 3000 kelvins, which means it should be just very, very slightly warm white. So it won't really look as bright white as it looks here on the video. But this looks really good. It's actually much brighter than the light that it replaced. All right, so here it is close up here. We'll just zoom out a bit. Well, there you have it, folks. It's pretty easy to install yourself here, and it should take you no more than really a half hour or so. So I hope you found this video useful and informational for you so far, and if you have, hey, do us a favor, would you? Click on that thumbs up button down below there. That tells us that you like us. And if you're not subscribed to our channel yet, all I can say is, man, why not? Because we have so many great videos here in all sorts of categories and remodeling your homes and your kitchens and your bathrooms and putting down flooring and dealing with engineering disasters, and we have tool reviews and shop with me's in the big box stores. So if you don't want to miss a single one of our videos, make sure you click that subscribe button down below and click the little gray bell icon next to it. That tells YouTube to alert you when we upload a new video. That's it for this week, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.